welcome to another episode of the RAW Barbell Club podcast. If you're new to our channel, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer, guys, I'm so glad to have you back. If you have any comments or questions about this episode, please leave them below and make sure you click that subscribe button just down here and click that notification tab so you get updates on when our next episode is out. Hey guys, and welcome to the RAW Barbell Club podcast. I'm your host, coach, and all-around good guy, Andy. And today I'm here with my Jiu Jitsu professor, black belt in Jiu Jitsu and owner of Gracie Barra Hawkesbury, David Jenkinson.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I kind of feel guilty because I haven't been to Jiu Jitsu all week.
I know, I haven't seen you. And I was thinking this morning, I'm going to go do a podcast with this guy, and he hasn't even been training. Should I call him out on it or not? But since you've brought it up, you know. Well,
I like to think that I wanted to make time for this, so I had to do some other work on those days when I had to come train. But okay. I should be in on Saturday.
We do have classes 5 days a week.
I know. You know. It's not on you. It's just excuses. I'm sure you hear. Look, I'm the same. Like, I hear so many excuses about why people aren't in the gym.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you're just as guilty.
Yep. Consistency is king.
How many days a week do you think you need to train jiu-jitsu to be like proficient?
At least twice, minimum twice. But of course, more is better.
Yeah.
But if you're training once a week, you're just gonna spin your wheels. You know, by the time, if you do 7 days in between classes, by the time you come back to the next week, you've probably forgotten everything that you did last week.
Yeah, well, that's how I felt when I came back from holidays.
Yeah.
And like when people, because you guys obviously have like a curriculum that you follow.
Yeah.
And if you come on like one day and then miss a bunch of days and you only come that 1 day a week, like that same day, that means that you're eventually gonna like miss certain parts of things that you should be training. Like you might just never learn, I guess, chokes if you always do throws on Monday or whatever.
Yeah, but we always come back around to it.
Okay.
And then we switch things up as well.
Okay, so you will eventually get to that stuff.
If you keep training, yes. Yeah.
What's like the drop-off rate normally for like someone who tries to start jiu-jitsu?
Our school is pretty good. Our retention rate is quite good, but our other schools, I've seen revolving doors to the point where people come in and in a few weeks you're like, oh, where's Gary? I haven't seen him in a while. Oh, no, he quit. So it is quite common that people drop off. Or, you know, we say jiu-jitsu is for everyone, but you know, not everyone is for jiu-jitsu. You know, it is a tough sport to get into, as you've seen. So
it sucks. It's so hard.
yeah, it is hard. You know, and it's very confrontational. You know, someone's in your face. You know, they're sweating on your face. You know, and what seemed like a good idea at the time to start jiu-jitsu, maybe you're feeling wasn't such a great idea when someone's trying to strangle you.
Yeah. How did you get into jiu-jitsu?
I got into it just, you know, probably the same way as many people get into it. I saw it on UFC. I heard Joe Rogan talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I wondered, what is this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Black belt, I've heard karate, taekwondo, but he keeps talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I thought he was talking about like capoeira, like dancing. I'm like, these guys aren't dancing. And then I've seen these guys rolling on the ground, strangling each other with their legs. And I thought, well, this stuff is pretty incredible, you know. Back when I started, if you fought on the ground, that was like cheap.
Yeah.
And then the Brazilians want to fight on the ground. They take you to the ground, beat you up, and start choking you. I thought, this is pretty savage stuff. And then when I tried a class, I got just dominated by this skinny blue belt kid, and I couldn't do anything. And I guess I just got addicted from there.
And when like how many years back was this?
About 12 years ago.
Okay. How long does it take, like most people, to attain like a black belt?
Average is about 10 years. It just depends on how often you're training and how proficient you are.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things come into play.
Have you ever seen someone come in and like you're just like, wow, this kid's super talented?
Yep. Most of them don't last.
Really?
Most of the talented people quit.
Yeah.
I still can't explain why that. I have an idea of why that is. What happens often is the talented people come in, they do really, really well, and then they face a bit of adversity, and then often it doesn't sit well with them. So we've seen that a lot.
I think that's the same for a lot of sports, isn't it? Because I guess you see
like phenoms come in on weightlifting as well, or any of the strength sports, and as soon as they get to a certain level, they're just sort of like, oh, you know what? Actually, this is quite hard.
Yeah.
And they just disappear.
Yeah. It's all fun when it's easy, but when it gets a little bit hard, move on to the next thing.
What was your first day of jiu-jitsu like when you versed this blue belt?
What was it like?
Yeah, like you walked in, were you like intimidated? Were you like, oh, we've got to wear these kimonos? And
I wasn't terribly intimidated. It was a pretty inviting atmosphere. You definitely feel very lost. I remember the first time I wore the gi, I couldn't understand how the belt went. Wrapping it around twice. I wrapped it around once, and I think it was hanging down to my knees. And no one said anything. I just did the whole class like that. And then later on, realized I've got to wrap it around my hips twice. But no, it was fine. I think most jiu-jitsu schools are pretty inviting, and I didn't feel intimidated or anything like this. I didn't feel overwhelmed. I felt that it was very challenging, and I was just really excited to get started.
And what was it in particular about it that like sort of got you hooked?
That's a good question. I think at the time, no one was doing it. You know, like it was something that none of my friends knew about. I hadn't seen it before. It was this exciting new thing. And I had at that time in my life, I didn't really have anything. You know, I didn't have a hobby or anything. I was just going through day to day, living my life, going to work, coming home, not doing much. And this was like an outlet, you know, something, it was like a secret that I had discovered that was mine and mine alone, and this outlet. And I think that's what hooked me, you know, just it was my thing.
What were you doing for work?
At the time, I think I was an off-sider delivering
What's
Jip
that?
Rock, so in a truck. So we'd go to job sites and carry Jip Rock and make big stacks of Jip Rock all day.
Wow. So you've always been like working with your hands and stuff.
Yes, labouring, lots of labouring jobs. When you say working with your hands, people might think like you could actually build something. I cannot build anything. I'm pretty good at carrying things and moving them around. But yeah, lots of labouring jobs.
And is it weird for you to like open your own school then, going from like working labouring jobs to suddenly being like, hey, actually I've got to like manage all of this stuff now?
Yeah, steep learning curve, but I really enjoy it.
When did you open Hawkesbury?
2015, early 2015.
Oh, so that's around the time I started RAW Barbell.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe a bit later I started RAW Barbell.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Both are around the same. And have you always been on, what street are you even on? Walker Street?
Ham Street.
Ham Street.
On the corner of Ham Street.
Next to the takeaway store.
Next to the takeaway store.
Have you ever been to that takeaway store?
Yeah, it's great.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've never been.
You gotta have one of his hamburgers.
Are they good?
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're old school burgers, you know, with beetroot and lettuce.
Like proper Aussie
like
burgers.
a proper Aussie burger. You gotta check it out.
I will. Because I used to actually do gymnastics at the gymnastics centres on Monday nights.
Where's that?
Like right next to where your gym is.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Vision.
yeah, right, yeah.
And then, have you ever been in there? It's
Yeah,
massive.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because you have little ones as well.
Yeah, I took my daughter there for a little while.
Did she like it?
Yeah, she loved it.
And they've got like this full parkour set up.
Yeah, they got the foam pit.
Yeah, you're already halfway being a ninja. You've got the fighting down. Just have to do the flips.
Have you seen me try to do a cartwheel?
No.
You won't agree if you saw me do a cartwheel.
Well, I think, was it Icy and stuff were all trying to do handstands?
Handstands. Dave Lazaro was trying to stand on his head for about 12 months, and he just can't do it. I said, why are you trying this?
Has he been able to do it yet?
I don't think so. I think he quit.
Oh. Because Icy's super, like he'd be pretty good at handstands and stuff, right?
Yeah, he's pretty athletic. He never used to be.
Really?
If you saw him when he was training with me in the adults class when he was 8, and he was this little, I wouldn't say fat, but he was a little bit tubby.
Yeah.
You know, and he's just had this crazy transformation from this very average jiu-jitsu player. He used to go out and probably lose more than he won, and he just stuck with it. And that's what I mean by these talented people. He wasn't one of the talented kids who came in excuse me, and just dominated. He really worked hard for what he's got. You know, he had to really commit himself to it.
And he's a beast.
And he's a beast now. And I think the people who have to work hard for these things are the ones that can stick it out, as opposed to the naturally gifted people who come in and then do get overwhelmed the first moment they come in contact with adversity.
My contact with adversity was like instantly as I walked into the gym.
Yeah.
It was, you know, that first time. Well, the first time that I got choked, I was like,
Guillotine?
Oh, this sucks. I always get caught in guillotines. Like every class.
You put your head in the wrong spot.
All the time. Though I know this escape now, you know, where you like put your hand over and then like get into their chest.
Yeah.
And then they're meant to let go. I haven't tried
They're
it.
meant to let go.
They're meant to.
They're not meant to. You got to get your head out.
Yeah, I'd be like, you've got to do something as well. But you know, my jiu-jitsu is like very bad. Like I'm just a beginner. But I love it. It's such a cool little challenge to do something different like that. And I've never done any combat sports before.
Yeah.
Was jiu-jitsu your first combat sport as well?
Yes.
So you'd never done any striking?
Nothing.
Or anything?
And as far as sports, just avoided sports practically my whole life. Like I had played soccer and, you know, other things when I was a kid, but I was terrible at sports. You know, I would avoid it at all costs. But jiu-jitsu was, I think it's because it's as much as a mental game as it is a physical game. It's something that, another reason why I've stuck with it. You know, it's like a strategy game. You know, I like video games too, and jiu-jitsu is very much like that. You know, I'm gonna give you my arm or make you think you're gonna take my arm, but I'm already 2 moves ahead, and I'm going to counter. I'm gonna pass your guard, and that's what I love about it as well. We're playing this mind game. You know, my move against yours, but I'm gonna be 2 moves ahead, but maybe you're 3 moves ahead.
So I hear Rogan talk about it all the time like that it's a chess game. And I'm not anywhere close to that.
No, you won't
that
see it
level
yet. At the moment, you're just trying to survive, thrashing around, and you won't see it like that for a little while. You know,
But
maybe
when I watch you roll, and especially when I watch you roll with like new people, and then I can see you deliberately like give them things, like give them your arm just so you can take it away.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I'm like, oh, he's a dick. No, you know, when you're just baiting them.
Well, you have to. Well, I could be more of a dick and not give them anything and just smash. But what would be the point of that? You know, no one's going to get anything out of that.
And I can see that you're obviously like doing it to teach them. But
To teach them, but also to keep it interesting for myself, because I put my arm out there, but maybe they grab it. You know, there's no guarantee that I'm just going to escape. Maybe they throw their hips up really hard and I have to tap, and it's happened before where I've been a little bit too cocky, left my arm in there thinking, oh, I'm just going to counter this guy. Next minute, I'm tapping out really quickly. So it still adds a little bit of danger to my rolling. It keeps it exciting.
Like, do you obviously roll a lot still?
Yeah.
And who are your favorite sort of like training partners? Do you prefer to roll with like, you know, blue belts or brown belts, or do you want to roll with like sort of everyone?
Yeah, definitely prefer higher belts who are close-ish to my weight. Within 20 kilos is fine. I find that I get the most productive workout with those guys.
Is it hard in jiu-jitsu because of like the disparity in weight? Because there are a lot of big guys at our gym.
Yeah.
And they're heavy.
Yeah, and they know where to put their weight and how to use it.
Yeah, the people that do know that, they're the scariest, because I'm like, I just have to keep my distance or get in close but stay on top.
Yeah, that's why it sucks to be a white belt, because you just have to roll who you're told to. Right, get to have a choice.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I guess it's part of the culture of like, there's a pecking order in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Where there's not really that in a lot of like Western sports.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. Like, where does that come from? The tradition and that sort of pecking order.
Like the belt system?
Well, yeah. I mean, the belt system's like, you know, pretty easy to understand. But like, just the deference that you give to the higher belts. Like, whenever I see someone who's like a blue belt or a...
Yeah, I guess it's just they've walked the path already. they're doing what you're doing. They're going against the big guys, getting strangled by big guys, and they've already spent years doing that. And now it's like, well, you're a purple belt, you're a brown belt. Now you should be able to, you know, you've walked that path, and now you've earned the right to pick your partners a little bit, pick your roles. And also, you know, people are getting older, injuries come into play. You know, you got to look after these higher belts as well. You know, you don't want them injured because they're very, very valuable to your school.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just that, you know, they've earned the right to, you know, pick and choose a little bit, but you still want them to challenge themselves as well.
Do you know a lot about like the history of like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and stuff like that?
I wouldn't say I'm a scholar, but you know, I read a little bit about the history. It can get a little bit confusing with all the Gracie lineages.
So, but you can try. Like, is it pretty easy to trace your lineage?
Yep.
Can you tell me?
Yep, I can. So there's me, my professor for many years, Chris Salas. His professor, Marcelo Rezengi. His professor, Carlos Gracie Jr. And his dad, Carlos Gracie.
Ah.
So that's a direct lineage to the source.
And this is gonna sound super rude, and I can't believe I just forgot it. But Carlos Gracie Senior is the one that we bow to.
Yeah, that old guy, the picture of the old guy. Yeah, that's Carlos Gracie.
I even looked this up before because I was like, don't
Nice
mess
research.
this up. And then I forgot. And so like we do this when you start a jiu-jitsu class. You bow to each other, obviously. You bow to whoever's teaching the class, and then you bow to Carlos Gracie Senior. Where does that come from? The bowing and like that sort of showing respect.
Well, it's still jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is Japanese, so it all originates in Japan, and it went to Brazil, but we still hold a lot of those Japanese traditions and values of respect. You know, we respect the dojo area, the mat area, we respect one another, and we're going to show respect to the founder of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, you know, wearing the kimono, that's not a Brazilian garment, obviously, so there's still a lot of Japanese influence in what we do, especially at our academy. A lot of other BJJ academies have sort of pushed that to the side, but we sort of like to keep that tradition and values, and we think that keeps a good atmosphere in the gym.
There's a like huge growth of obviously people trying to do like no gi stuff. Do you prefer gi or no gi?
I go through phases. At the moment, I'm really in a no gi phase. I'm really enjoying the no gi, but who knows, in a few months I might be back.
Is there what is it about the no gi that you're enjoying?
At the moment, I'm just working on my strangles, my guillotines, and
Oh no.
yeah, yeah. Because for a long time I just sort of neglected that, and I didn't really have a good guillotine. I thought it's about time I get a really good guillotine, and I've been practicing really hard, but it's so hard in the gi to do a good guillotine because of all the friction and the collars getting in the way. But in no gi, it just slips right in there. It's so easy to sink in. So I think that's a big part of why I'm enjoying it. I've also been spending a lot of time the last few years just attacking people's legs with heel hooks and things like this, and that's generally a no-gi type strategy. So the type of game that I'm trying to play at the moment is sort of more towards that no-gi, but I still enjoy the gi.
Are there schools of like play that like you're talking about like this is my type of game, and like are there a set amount of different games that certain people play for their like I guess body types or just preferences or size?
Yeah, your game, the strategy that you use will ultimately be decided by your body type. Okay, if you're a lanky guy, you're probably going to be more prone to be more successful with a guard attacking game. If you're a short, stocky, you know, thicker guy, you're going to be heavy on top. So that will, and generally you'll be more comfortable on top, and you will end up trying to get on top because you're more successful there, and then a strategy will develop from that. So you don't really sort of sit there and think, oh, I want to be a top player, I want to be a bottom player, I want to play my game like this. You'll naturally just gravitate to certain positions depended usually by your body type, and then you can just grow it from there.
Huh. And when you talk about like bottom or top guys and stuff like that, can you just explain for people exactly what that means? Can you explain to them like what guard is and a couple of different positions that you work on in Jiu-Jitsu?
Yep, so the guard, or being a bottom player, is someone who prefers to fight off their back, using their legs to attack chokes or sweeps, things like this. Someone who likes to play on top likes to pass the guard, which means get around the legs and attack from there, attack from the mount. Some people also like to try to take the back. Fighting off your back, and this is one of those things where we talked about earlier, what was so interesting about Jiu-Jitsu is, if you had told me 15 years ago that someone could be on their back on the ground and win a fight, I would have just thought you're crazy. But that's one of the great strengths of Jiu-Jitsu, is you can be put on your backside and then still defeat a heavier opponent. Now obviously you don't want to be there, you're not going to sit to guard in a fight, but sometimes you get put on your back and there's nothing you can do about it. In Jiu-Jitsu, there's absolutely something you can do about it.
And what about some of the other positions, like the mounts and even taking people's backs and stuff like that?
Yep, so mount is probably the most dominant position.
I got really bad donut burps.
Do you?
Yeah.
I haven't noticed, but I've got like this cough coming up. I've got like some reflux happening. I can't smell it, don't worry. I've got a terrible sense of smell.
I just keep feeling them come up. I'm like, I probably shouldn't have had that donut.
It was a good donut. It was worth it. The mount is basically just sitting on their chest, and there's not a lot you can do when someone's sitting on your chest. And the cool thing about Jiu-Jitsu is you can decide whether to restrain someone, or if you want to take it further, you can do that. And taking somebody's back, there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. If someone's on your back, you got to think you can't punch them, you can't do anything. You're being completely dominated in that position.
And in terms of like the I know people have positions that they prefer, like that's indicated by their game, but would you say there's like the worst position to be in, and like the best position to be in? Like obviously having someone's back and then taking someone's back, but other than that?
Yeah, the worst position you can be in is flat on your belly with someone on your back. That's just terrible. You can't do anything from there. That sucks. And the best position is having someone flat on their belly and you being on their back.
Fair enough. When did you first start competing in Jiu-Jitsu?
When I was a white belt, probably a year into training.
Do you recommend people start competing like sooner or later?
Probably within, if you've 6 months of consistent training, you can start competing, because you're going to compete against other white belts. It's not like they're going to throw you in with brown belts or black belts. You'll compete against people of similar ability, similar experience.
Yeah.
So 6 months, I think, is good, as long as you've been training consistently up until that point.
Otherwise, you just see them run around and flail.
I love the white belts. They're the most exciting guys to watch, because they got only 5 minutes and they go for it.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, and it's usually chaos. So I prefer the black belts can be a bit boring, because they got a 10-minute round, and they know it. So they're going to be slower and methodical, and it's beautiful, but it's not as exciting as watching 2 white belts trying to kill each other. That's a lot of fun.
So white belts go 5 minutes.
Yeah.
How long did blue belts go?
6, purple 7, brown 8, and black 10.
Wow.
For adults, but once it gets to masters, then they bring it back to 5.
Are there are a lot of jiu-jitsu competitions, right?
These days there are, yep.
When you first started, were there many?
No. Maybe 4 or 5 a year.
So would that have meant that you basically knew everyone who competed in jiu-jitsu?
Not really. I'm not very social, so I never went out of my way to meet everyone.
Yeah, fair enough. But it would have been a small community.
Yeah. And it still is a small community. Even though the sport has blown up, most people still know one another.
Are there any schools that you're like, oh, that's a bad school? You don't
Maybe.
have to say.
Possibly. You know what? Not for jiu-jitsu, no. I think everyone who has a rank and is teaching, is fine. I don't really have any schools where I go, oh, they suck.
Yeah.
Everyone does their thing and does it well.
Do you have any schools that you're like, oh wow, they're like amazing, and that's where I aspired my school to be like?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you want to talk about some of those?
Yeah, sure. Right now, the school that everyone's looking at, and this isn't a Sydney-based school. If we're talking internationally, is the Henzo Gracie Academy.
Yeah.
In New York. They're the one that everyone's looking towards at the moment. And that's a school that I look at. But I'd say they're the best at the moment. But that's up for contention.
And what is it about them that is like so cool?
They've changed the game. They come out about 5 or 6 years ago and started dominating the leg attacks, and they've just dominated the scene. They've got great athletes and they've got a great coach in John Danaher. He's really changed the game and has a really interesting approach to the sport. He came from an academic background. He was a professor in philosophy, and he sort of brought that academic background, in jiu-jitsu. And he's brought that approach to teaching philosophy to jiu-jitsu. Some people don't like it because he can be a bit long-winded when he explains things, but I like it. I like the details and the way he sort of talks about, certain moves.
And when you talk about leg attacks, and you're not obviously talking, like for people that at home that may not know what jiu-jitsu is, you're not talking about kicking.
No.
Can you explain what you're talking about?
Yeah, so leg attacks is when you're trying to basically destroy someone's knee or their ankle by wrapping it up with your own legs and twisting it in a way it's not supposed to be twisted. So when, a very common attack is a heel hook where you're applying a twisting force to the knee, which basically just destroys the ligaments in your knee.
Something that's not fun to be in, I assume. I've
No.
never been in one before.
No, but it's fun to do to people. And it's quite easy enough to tap,
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where if they got you, they've got you. You just say, okay, you got me. You don't push it.
Especially in training.
Yeah. There's no medals in training.
Do you think that, like, is there a rate of perceived exertion that you should be at in training at all times?
I think you got to mix it up.
Yeah.
I think you can't be running at a 10 all the time. I'll see a lot of people running at a 10 all the time, and then before training they're wrapping themselves up with tape and they're always injured. I think you really got to mix it up. I think for me at the moment, because I'm doing 7-minute rounds at the moment, and I'm finding it's a much lower RPE that I'm running. I'm going like a 60-70%. But if I shorten that time, I'll raise it. So I think I'll train hard like that, like a 10. Not even a 10. I'll never go to a 10, maybe 8 or a 9, maybe once a week, once every so often. But most of the time, I'm just running at like 70%, just trying to work on stuff. I don't want to get injured. I don't want to injure other people. There's no point. We're not competing. If I want to get a high, a bit of a workout in, I'll raise the intensity, but I'll never go 100%. You leave that for competitions.
Is there, like, what's the best way to approach a class as a student? Like, let's say we're talking about me, because I'm talking about me.
Mm-hmm.
I come to class when I come to class.
You come to class. That's a stretch.
When I come to class, like, what should I be thinking about? Should I be taking notes? Because I've always wondered, like, I often forget things.
Yeah, you can. I mean, everyone learns differently, and if you feel like taking notes is going to help, you can do that. Like I said earlier, consistency is king. You just got to show up.
Just got to do it more often.
Yeah. And just drill it. Yeah.
And because I once asked you about like how you do things when you're rolling and when you're drilling, like, are you thinking really carefully about exactly what move you're doing, or are you sort of just going with the motion and you just, like, inside you know what you have to do?
Yeah, sometimes I just take what I'm given, but other times I'll have a goal. So like we were talking about earlier, I'm trying to get better at guillotine. So now all my rolling is based around me trying to get to someone's neck.
So like setting them up for that purpose.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get to that neck and try to strangle it. You know, and if other things, you know, if I see other opportunities while I'm trying to get to the neck, I'll take it. But I roll with a purpose. You know, I'm not just going through the motions, because that will get boring.
Yeah.
You know, I set myself a goal, and it makes it harder as well when you set a goal, a specific goal. I want to get this, not just whatever I see. That adds an extra challenge to what I'm doing.
And I've noticed that when especially now that I can free roll and stuff, when I roll with like higher belts, that they're often like trying to get me in like one specific thing all the time. Whereas when you roll with other white belts, they're often just trying to do.
They'll take whatever they can get.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah. But the higher belts are working on stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I rolled with, like last time I came in, I rolled with Claudia, and she was just like constantly trying to get me in an armbar, even when there were like other things available. Yeah. And I was like, oh, she's trying to trick me.
That's the whole game. Is we're always trying to trick one another.
Yeah.
You know, the other day I was rolling with Kieran, and I was in side mount, so he was on the bottom and I was on top, and I'm trying to work my way closer to his head, but he knows that, and he's doing a good job of defending that, pushing me down to his hips. So I thought, I'm going to fake going for his legs, and when he freaks out, I'm going to come up and grab the head. And that's exactly what happened. I sort of moved down and grabbed the leg, and he started moving his hips around trying to get away, and that exposed the head. And when I came back up and went for the head.
It's so clever. Jiu-Jitsu is such a clever sport. It's... Do you know anyone who's dumb who's good at Jiu-Jitsu?
Who's done?
Dumb.
Oh, dumb?
Yeah. Oh, when I say dumb, I mean like
oh, who does
stupid.
Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah. Who does Jiu-Jitsu well?
No, I don't think so.
Because it seems like most people that are very good at it think a lot about stuff.
Yeah. No, I've never met a dummy who's proficient in Jiu-Jitsu. That's a fair statement.
You do some strength training, right? You haven't for a while.
Not in a while.
But you were doing some strength training before.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most important strength training that you can do to supplement your Jiu-Jitsu?
I think just keeping it simple is very important for Jiu-Jitsu. So squats, deadlift, bench, I think are perfectly fine for Jiu-Jitsu. You know, the simpler you can keep it, the better. The moment you start getting overly complicated, it's going to interfere a little bit with Jiu-Jitsu, because Jiu-Jitsu is a steep learning curve on itself. And then if you start adding complicated movements in your strength and conditioning, then it's going to get really hard, and then it's going to increase the risk of injury, and it's going to take you away from the mat. So I think just keeping it super simple. When I do get back into lifting, which hopefully will be very soon, I'm just going to do a squat, bench day, and then a deadlift press day. And just do it like that, like 7 RPE, 8 RPE.
And have you ever been injured in Jiu-Jitsu?
Not seriously.
A lot of people...
I don't know if I can call myself a true black belt.
Why most black belts, right?
Yeah. I've had like little things like my toe is pretty weird looking at the moment because it's been broken several times. My ears are pretty funky looking.
Can't
I
see
got
that
kind of
because of
weird look. Yeah, I got weird looking fingers, but I've never had a serious injury. My back used to give me problems, like back spasms, but I haven't had really that issue for a while now. But no, nothing serious.
Why do you think you're so well off in that respect compared to other people?
I don't know, just lucky, I guess. I think at the moment, one of the big things is that I'm not training 100% every time I step on the mats. You know, I'm just taking care of myself. If that means I'm going to let someone pass my guard to avoid injury, then I'm going to let it happen. Because I've got to be on the mat tomorrow and the day after. You know, I'm playing the long game. You know, I'm not trying to win a world title. I want to do this for a long time, and that's always in the back of my mind when I'm training. You know, when I'm training Jiu-Jitsu or if I'm lifting or doing anything, I'm always doing it in a way that's a little bit conservative.
Makes sense. Smart way to be. Do you remember the first competition that you ever won?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
There's not much to remember. I think I had 2 matches. One thing that I do remember is that the finals was a bit contentious.
Was it by points?
It was by points. The other guy didn't agree and blew up majorly, and his coach blew up at the referee majorly. I remember he also complaining about some of my tactics, which may or may not have included me pushing my head into his face, which is actually totally legal. But that's all I really remember of that. I had 2 matches and yeah.
Wait, what is not allowed in jiu-jitsu? Striking,
There's heaps of
obviously.
things that are not allowed. Yeah, striking, you can't slam somebody from inside the guard, you can't grab fingers and manipulate fingers. There's certain rules with the leg locks in most competitions.
Like what? You're not allowed to actually break people's legs?
Yeah, well, depends on what belt you are. So for most belts, you can only do a straight foot lock, and for higher belts, you can only do a straight foot lock, a knee bar, and a toe hold. But at the moment, the rules are changing in different competitions. So the traditional competitions, which is IBJJF, a lot of other competitions coming out now with more relaxed rule sets, where you can do a lot more different things.
Yeah.
But the book, it's quite a thick book, and I'm still learning about the rules myself. When I started competing, I didn't know what the rules were. I just did what we do in training. I didn't really understand what I could do or could not do. I just figured I just roll the waiver I do in training. It should be fine.
Yeah. And obviously there are things, like, there's not really much that we do in training that you're not allowed to do in competition.
No. For you guys, the white belts, everything that I teach, you'll be able to do in competition. For the blue belts, I do teach some things that they won't be able to do, but I do tell them that this will be illegal in an IBJJF competition. But it's still jiu-jitsu. Just because it's illegal in a competition doesn't mean that you shouldn't learn it. You know, the sign at the front says Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It doesn't say IBJJF competition Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, and it's, jiu-jitsu also for like things like self-defense and
there's many different ways we can apply jiu-jitsu. Self-defense, MMA, sports, gi or no gi. I think a lot of schools, they just focus on one particular rule set and base all their jiu-jitsu training around that. But that's just one part of it. You know, jiu-jitsu encompasses a lot of different things, a lot of different rule sets, a lot of different strategies that can be used that people neglect.
All right, so back to your competition. So competitions also work in like a tree structure, right? So like you verse like athlete 1 and athlete 3 and 4 go together, and then the winners of those 2 go to the next round, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So how
most of the time, but sometimes it's a round robin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How many rounds will you have to fight in a competition then? Sorry, how many fights will you have to fight?
It depends how many people are in your category.
Okay.
You know, if you've got a big category, if you've got a lot of competitors, you're going to fight. You can fight many rounds. If you've only got 2 or 3, you might only have 1 or 2 rounds. So it just depends on who signs up for any given competition.
This might be a silly question, but do most people when they compete have multiple gis, or do you just wear the same gi the whole day?
Most people wear the same one.
So by the end of it, you're pretty damn gross and sweaty.
Yeah, it's going to stink. Yeah.
Interesting. These are little things that, like, as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I wonder if this is the case.
But you know what? For the worlds,
Yeah.
there is a rule where you have to bring a white and a blue gi, so that they can differentiate when they score. But most of the time, they just put a different belt around your waist.
Yeah.
But I did read once that you have to bring a white gi and a blue gi.
Huh. Yeah, because I see that comp that I came and watched. Who competed at that comp? There were a bunch of people. But they put that little orange belt on some of them.
Yeah, and that's just to make it easier for scoring.
So yeah, back to this first competition, you had this guy that was like going off his head and arguing. What, like, were the refs just like, no, you lost?
Pretty much.
Get out of here.
Yeah. They're not going to change their mind. You know.
Yeah.
Whenever you argue with a ref, it's pretty pointless. You know, they've made the decision. They're not going to change their mind. There's no point. You know, you take it and then you move on to the next one. You know.
So there's two ways of winning a jiu-jitsu match. It's either by tap out, or maybe there's three ways. Something breaks and then they call it.
Yep.
And then points.
Or disqualification.
Oh, okay. So 4 ways.
Yeah.
How does the point system work?
Yep. 2 points for a takedown, 3 points for passing guard, 2 points for knee on belly, 4 points for holding the mount, 4 points for holding the back mount. So it's a positional hierarchy. Right? So the better position, the more points you get. Mount and back mount are the most dominant positions, so you'll get the most points for those. Knee on belly is a good position, but not overly dominant, so you only get 2. If you can get around someone's legs, passing the guard, that's a tricky thing to do, so they'll give you 3 points for that.
Yeah.
And a takedown, there's not much emphasis on a takedown, only 2 points, which is why so many people sort of sit on their butts, because why risk it for 2 points?
Yeah. And it's mainly a ground sport anyway.
That's right.
Let's say you have someone on their, like inside mount. Oh, sorry, you have someone on knee on belly, then you progress to mount. If you go back to knee on belly and then go to mount again, do you get another 4 points?
No.
Okay.
My understanding, and I might be wrong, is that you have to be put back into the guard and start all over again from the guard to recycle those points again.
Okay. Is it worthwhile doing that, or are you better off just...
Well, you wouldn't do it on purpose.
Okay.
But if you got the mount, you'd want to stay on the mount.
Yeah. I see. And if you're, let's say you're mounted and you flip someone, you don't get any points.
It's not a sweep. It's an escape.
I see.
You don't get rewarded for getting out of a bad position.
Because you got there in the first place.
Yeah.
How many do you rather see, like, competitions won on points, or would you rather see like a proper tap?
You got to fight to the rules. I'm a believer in that. If no one remembers how you win,
Yeah.
you know, if you're in a competition, it's a points-based competition, then you got to play to the points. Of course, if a submission presents itself, you should go for it, but you shouldn't risk losing the position for the submission.
Yeah.
So I always say to people, try to get at least 6 points ahead before trying to force a submission. Okay, risking the position for the submission. So if someone gets the mount, they're 6 points ahead, there's a minute left to go, I say go for it. You know, because the worst thing that can happen is they get on top, but you still got a little bit of time left, but not too much. You're well ahead on points, likely you're still going to win. But if you've just started the match and you're trying to get a submission and you're not ahead of in front by any points, and going for that submission might open you to losing the position, I feel like that's not a great strategic move.
Yeah.
So play to the points. If it's submission only competitions, which there are, then you can go out there and just try to get submissions, and it's not going to matter.
Have you done many of those?
No. They weren't really any around when I was competing.
When did you stop competing?
I competed last year. Not very well, but I competed last year. And before that, it was about 4 years. So I haven't really competed seriously for about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. Do you miss competition at all?
Occasionally, but not enough to
get back in there.
To lose the weight and do the training involved.
What did you compete at?
I competed as low as 67.
And what do you weigh now?
About 82.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What are the weight classes for jiu-jitsu?
67, 73, I think there's 77, and then above that, I don't know. I just remember the ones
that you
I competed in. Yeah.
Do you know how many weight classes there are?
No.
Okay. They seem pretty similar to like a lot of sports.
Yeah, there's about 5-6 kilos in between.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. And how do you cut weight for a competition, or do you just weigh that much?
You don't really cut weight. Like cutting weight suggests that you're dehydrating yourself. I think some people do that, but I always just dieted very strictly before a competition, and no, I never dehydrated myself. Just strict diet.
And you have to weigh in your gi, right?
Yeah.
Is there a rule on how heavy the gi has to be?
There's not a rule on how heavy, but there are rules on what fabric the gi is.
Yeah.
And what kind of gi you use, and how short the sleeves are. So there are rules on what kind of gi that you can wear.
How short can the sleeves be?
About 4 fingers from your wrist.
Oh, so it can be pretty short.
Yeah, it can be relatively short, but they don't like it too short.
So don't chuck your gi in the dryer.
Yeah, there's been times where we've had guys and we've had to try to stretch their gis out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And when I say guys, I mean me.
Because yours was too short.
Yeah. I remember when I was a white belt having one of my coaches and another guy pulling my gis from either side trying to stretch it out. And it worked. We got it stretched out.
Wow. And was that a comp that you won, or?
I can't remember.
Oh.
Probably not.
What's the worst you've ever been like tapped?
Yeah, white belt. Someone had Americana, and I just, at the time, I didn't feel it. You know, I didn't understand that there was adrenaline and probably should tap, and I didn't tap, but I couldn't move that shoulder for a long time properly. Like, it really wrecked my shoulder. I didn't see anyone about it. I just sort of lived my life with this sore shoulder where I could barely put on a t-shirt by myself or lift my arm above my shoulder, and that even today, I'm not very flexible in that shoulder, and for a long time
Wow.
I couldn't low bar squat because of the tightness. So yeah, probably should have tapped that day.
And was that
pretty nasty?
that was in training?
No, that was in a competition.
Oh, that was in competition.
Yeah.
And for those at home, can you explain to them what an Americana is?
So it's a shoulder lock where they have like a figure 4 grip on your wrist, and they're hyperextending your arm behind the back of your neck. Essentially, that's what it is. So your arm is in like a right angle, up towards your head, and being pushed backwards.
Yeah, into like extreme external rotation.
Yeah.
Because, and they're like, I guess, levering your shoulder over their other arm.
Yeah, they've turned your arm into a lever, which they can turn and basically just rip up your shoulder.
What's the worst that you've ever tapped someone?
I don't think I've injured anyone on purpose. Nothing comes to mind.
Okay, what's your favorite ever tap that you've done? Like, you're like, oh, I just set that guy up so well, and he just fell into my trap, and I just
yeah, nothing comes to
dominated.
mind. Like, probably every couple of weeks I get a new favorite. You know,
Yeah.
You get excited. Lately, I've been enjoying wrist locking people, just because everyone hates being wrist locked. You know, it's kind of a gag in our gym if you get wrist locked. You know, so I enjoy that because actually I got one for you. Have you met Jason? Our brown belt Jason?
Yeah, the one who teaches classes?
Yeah. So I wrist locked him a couple of weeks ago. I was pretty chuffed with that because I just had him flat on his back and I isolated his arm and I just had my hand on his hand, and it was this little battle of me trying to twist his hand, and he was fighting back, but he couldn't. His other arm was stuck, and eventually I got it and I made him tap it. He was very upset by that, but that made me very happy.
Is he a baker?
No, he used to have a cake shop, but he's not a baker.
Someone told me that he was a baker or something. I was like, oh, that guy
He's
looks...
baked, but he's not a baker.
Yeah, okay. What does he do now?
He works for a bin company. He has an ice cream shop.
He has an ice cream shop?
He does.
Is it close by?
It's in Penrith.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Man, that guy is
Some
full of
pretty
surprises.
tasty.
He's like a scary looking dude as well. I remember he blew up at someone. Because, Jiu Jitsu is a sport where, you're barefoot
Mm-hmm.
and the mats are very well taken care of because we don't want to spread any sort of disease,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Because, staph is a big
Staph
thing.
is, we've never had staph in our gym, but in the community it can happen, and it's very dangerous, So it's really important that, I do my part. I disinfect the mats every single day, but everyone else has to do their part and come in clean gis and, just little things like not walking off the mats without shoes on, and especially not walking into the bathrooms without their shoes on.
Yeah, I remember once one guy did that,
Yeah.
and Jason lost his shit.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah, well,
Okay.
it's pretty gross, right? Like
Yeah, it
you
is,
walk
it
in there,
is.
you don't know someone's left a puddle in there, then they walk on the mats, and then someone's face is in that, you know. So yeah, we're pretty strict on that. Everything else I'm pretty chill with, but yeah, definitely don't walk off the mats without your shoes on.
Like, you seem pretty relaxed. Are all schools like that? Because I've never like been to another school.
No, look, some are, some aren't. Every school, the environment will be dependent on the leader, right?
Yeah.
Like the black belt will determine what kind of environment it is. Some schools are really strict with the way you sit up and, you know, coming in on time and everything, where other schools are a lot less strict than even us. You know, we still have our dojo etiquette where we bow and on and off the mats. I've been to schools where they're walking off the mats with no shoes on, there's no bowing or anything like this. You know, I think we have like a good middle ground where we're not overly strict on things, but at the same time we hold a general standard of respect and hygiene.
Well, one thing I really like about coming to jiu-jitsu is just the discipline of like people coming in and bowing, and everyone like pretty much like you walk into the gym, everyone always says hello to you, no matter if you're like a newbie or, you know, you've been there for however many years. And that was one thing that I really liked when I first started. That you walk in and like people are like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah, it's always good to see a new face in the gym, and it's really important to have a friendly environment, you know, where people, like you said earlier, you know, you don't want people coming in and feeling intimidated, because often people don't come in at all because they're feeling intimidated. You know, the last thing you want is them to come in and be looked at like fresh meat, you know. But yeah, no, I think we've got a really good school. We don't have anyone that any undesirables, and I think
Except for Shannon.
except for Shannon, piece of shit. Well, I think the dojo etiquette does a big part in keeping that out. You know, the dickheads don't want to wear the gi. They don't want to bow down to the old guy, the picture of the old guy, Master Carlos. You know, they don't want to do those things. So yeah, all those things work well to keep a good atmosphere.
One of the things that I found really fun was when I finally got that third stripe, and like everyone was like a lot nicer to me. It was almost like, oh, they were like, okay, you've stuck around long enough.
Yeah. Now we can remember your name.
That's what it was like.
Yeah, it's like you've got your third stripe, and that means that, you know, Professor thinks that you're not a dickhead.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't give out third stripes to people who I don't trust, because that means you're allowed to spar now. You know, when people come in and they go a bit crazy, you're not going to get that. I'm not going to let my guys roll with you until you've calmed down and I trust you, and that's really what that means. And when you get that, people go, oh, okay, this guy, he's all right. We can roll with this guy, and he's not going to try and break my arm off or do anything silly on the mats.
So when you give someone their first stripe, what are you looking for?
Just you know, minimum attendance and just that commitment. You know, they've come in for a couple of months. They're doing their best. First stripe just means like you've got a good start and you're coming in.
It's almost like a gold star. Like, good job.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Second stripe?
Basically the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
third stripe is third and fourth are the most important, because third stripe, like I said, is when you can start rolling. Fourth stripe is when I start looking at you as someone who is close to being ready for blue belt.
Yeah, okay. And what is the prerequisites for blue belt in your eyes?
Basic knowledge of fundamentals, someone who can roll safely, someone who is training consistently for at least a year. Most people it takes longer. You know, it's someone who I'll roll with and not feel like I'm being put in unsafe positions or having to roll in a manner where I have to be a little bit extra forceful because they're doing anything silly, and just a general good attitude to training, you know.
And then moving on from there, like what do you look for as you progress through? You don't have to go through every single stripe, but Like, what does someone who's on the cusp of purple belt look like?
Yeah, it's hard because I've only given out a handful of purple belts, so it's really an individual basis. You know, I've got to look at everyone individually because we have people of different sizes, different genders, different ages, and you can't judge them all in the same light.
Yeah.
So I look at their own potential, you know, measured by themselves and not by anyone else.
So you look at almost like their progress as well.
Yeah, it's a very individual thing. So there's no real general prerequisite for a purple belt.
Okay. And what do you look for when you're looking at promoting a purple to brown?
I've only done that twice. Yeah, there got to be someone who pushes me on the mat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that Mark?
Yeah, Mark and Jason I've promoted. They've come from other schools, so I've not had somebody that started with me. But yeah, those were guys who I felt they're starting to push me. They deserve. I don't want to get tapped by a purple belt. Better make them a brown belt.
And I mean, I haven't ever done anything with Jason, but Mark is a beast as well.
Yeah, he's awesome.
That guy, for someone who's like a big dude,
Yeah,
he moves so fast.
And you know, he's got some pretty bad injuries too. Like his back is pretty messed up. He messed up his foot not long ago.
Yeah.
So he moves really well for a guy who's pretty messed up. Like I think he got told he shouldn't ever do any sort of training ever again.
Really? Oh.
But how many times you've probably had people say that to you a bunch of times. But no, he moves really well. He can kick above his head too. Would you believe it?
Nah.
He's got these short, stumpy legs, and he can throw that leg up.
Oh, that guy, he's such a beast. And I mean, he's another guy that is like super knowledgeable and like really helpful too. Like whenever, you know, like all of these, especially that morning crew, all of them are like much higher belts. And they're always like just so generous with their time and, you know.
Yeah, and that's what you got to encourage because I can't teach everyone all the time, you know. And I tell these guys, it's got to trickles down from me to the browns and purples, but you guys have got to spread it out to the lower belts because I can't spend like a great deal of time with everybody. You know, this is where the high belts come in, and that's another thing about being a blue belt is now there's an expectation of you to start bringing up the white belts to your level. And it's the same with purple belt as well, you know.
Yeah. You're trying to bring out the blue belts up to your level.
Yeah. If you're a blue belt, you need to bring them up because you want to bring them up, you know, because they're going to be your training partners and you want to have good training partners anyway.
You don't always just want to crush people.
No, there's no fun in that. It's like playing a video game out easy all the time. You get pretty sick of that pretty quickly.
What video games are you into?
I don't play as much as I used to, but I like really boring stuff. I love SimCity. I'll sit and play that for hours. Just building my city. I like UFC. That's fun. Red Dead Redemption is fun. Just wandering around and killing
It's sort
people.
of like choose your own adventure as well.
Yeah. You can sort of do your own thing. What else? I like Gran Turismo. I like driving fast, so that's fun as well. Yeah, just a handful of games.
Yeah, I definitely heard you before you got, like, as you got rocked up today. It's like, oh, that sounds like his car.
Yeah.
That's why I met you at the
It's
door.
got a nice noise. I think my whole neighbourhood hears that when I get up.
Have you always been into cars?
For a long time, yeah.
And always been a Ford guy?
Yeah. I sort of fell out of it for a while, but I think that's just because I couldn't afford a decent car. But yeah, I always loved the Fords. I got into cars when I first saw a XY Falcon when I was young, and I just went, wow, what is that thing? You know, had the stripes on it, and it sounded awesome. That was actually my Year 10 formal car, and I had an XW and an XY for my wedding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I can't afford that yet.
But that's next.
Probably not. That's probably still going to be unattainable. Those things are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'd have to sell the house for that. I don't think the missus will be happy.
So you have one daughter, right?
I have two.
Oh, you have two daughters. Are they both in jiu-jitsu?
No, one's 18 months.
Okay. So she's just working on her back
She's
game.
barely
at the moment.
walking. She does throw kicks and go Kia, but that's about as far as she goes. Because her mum's a black belt in karate as well, so she'll be definitely doing martial arts.
Yeah.
As soon as possible. As soon as she's 3, she'll be in karate, in Jiu Jitsu. My eldest daughter's been doing karate since she was 3. She's 12 now, and Jiu Jitsu since she was 6.
Are you scared that when she gets older, she's going to beat you up?
She already beats me up. She can kick towards my head now. So it's going to happen. I just have to accept that.
It just happens earlier for you because you've trained her so well.
Yeah, that's right. I have to get trickier. You know, she's going to be tall, I think. So she's going to have a decent reach. I'm just going to have to be trickier.
Because your wife's tall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. If I don't know how you keep kids in line if they can beat you up.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll figure that out as it comes. Cross that bridge when I get there.
I think we've been going for an hour, so this is probably a good time to sort of call it.
Cool.
Where can people get in contact with you if they want to start jiu-jitsu? At Gracie Barra Hawkesbury,
gbhawkesbury.com.au.
aka the best jiu-jitsu gym in the world.
Absolutely, in the universe.
And you have an Instagram now?
I do. I've had an Instagram. Oh yeah, we've got the GB Instagram now. I've had my Instagram for a while, but not much goes up on that.
Sometimes I see squats.
You haven't seen squats in a while.
No, not for a long time.
Not for a long time.
I used to see squats
Used
all
to
the
see
time.
squats. There used to be low bar squats all the time, but not in a while. I've actually pulled my gym set apart.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But you bought all that gear. Like,
Yeah, I was going to put it up in my house, but now I think we're going to sell it. So I'm like, because it's in the sunroom and
Yeah.
we've got carpet, and I don't want to put it down on carpet, so we're going to put flooring down, but now we're thinking about selling, so it's just sitting in boxes in my back room. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
Yeah, fair enough.
You're not looking for a squat rack, are you?
No. Put it at the gym.
There's no space. The kids will get into it. It'll be a
Oh yeah, because you have all
nightmare.
those little kids
Yeah.
running around as well.
I had a setup in the gym a while ago, and I was constantly telling kids to get out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit dangerous.
But what's really cool is watching those kids roll. Like sometimes when I get there in the afternoon and watch them roll before we get there, the first thing is I see the games they play and I'm like, oh, I wish we did that.
Yeah.
And then the
Duck,
second
goose.
Yeah. And bull rush and all of that.
Bull rush.
And then I think to myself, oh, like they're quite little, so the length of the mats is quite long.
They
for
don't
'em.
realise all they're doing is sprints
Yeah.
when they play bull rush, going back and forth, and they're laughing their asses off. They love it.
But some of them are like crazy.
Yeah.
And I look at them and I'm like, oh, I would not want to fight that kid.
Oh yeah, they're beasts. Kids just naturally pick it up. You know, I think it's ingrained in us, and we kind of lose that. You know, that's why kids like to wrestle. It's like animals that they play fight with each other. Kids do the same thing when they wrestle, and it's this natural thing. You watch 3-year-olds wrestle, and it looks like the most natural thing in the world. You know, but when you get older, you sort of lose all that.
Do you think it's harder the older you get to start jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
Huh.
But it still doesn't mean that you can't do it.
Yeah.
It just means that you've been following these patterns of movement for so many years, and now we're telling you to move your hips in ways that you've never done before. It's going to be hard to sort of get your head around that. But with training and time, you can absolutely do it. But if you get there at a younger age, you know, it's a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much for being on, man.
My pleasure.
So that's at David Jenkinson. David Jenkinson on Instagram, right?
I think so.
And the gym Instagram is at GB Hawkesbury.
Gracie Barra Hawkesbury, I think.
At Gracie Barra.
I think so.
And Baha is Barra.
Yeah.
If you're listening.
Yeah, Gracie Barra.
Yeah, Gracie. I did actually call it that when I first started.
Well, I know a brown belt, but still calls it that.
All right, guys. You can find Raw Barbell Club at Raw Barbell Club on all of our social medias. So that's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. Check out our stories. See what everyone in the gym is getting up to. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. See our training diaries and vlogs. And also you can check out really cool episodes and interviews with people like Professor Dave here. And lastly, guys, if you love this podcast, please make sure to share it, because that's how, one, this podcast grows, and two, that's how we can, give the gift of Professor David to the world. And the last thing I want to ask you guys is, you can now help this podcast. Making this podcast is a lot of fun, but we thrive on your donations. So you can go to www.rawbarbellclub.com/donate, and all we're asking for is the price of a coffee. If every single person donated a coffee, we'd have enough money to keep this podcast going for another few months, and we'd also be able to do a bunch of cool projects, like we're traveling all over Australia to interview really cool people. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
If you like that episode, I really think you might like this one. And if you want to search for more episodes, guys, click this little circle thing right here. If you want to stay notified, make sure to click that subscribe button below and click that notification tab.